pantheon of concrete and steel. When it was time to add upper decks, do you know where that concrete came from? It's Louisiana Concrete Products. Whether it's the next Gulf hurricane or Death Valley earthquake, you can trust Louisiana Concrete Products.
Insurance companies have teams of professionals to fight your claim. If you want to know what your case is really worth, I'm Spencer Callahan. I'd like to help.
Spencer Callahan is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA filing number 16-7970.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona inviting you to check out LSU Daily, presented by Tecovas. It's a daily podcast covering all things LSU. If you want news, headlines, topics, and opinions on the LSU Tigers, we got you covered every single weekday on LSU Daily, presented by Tecovas.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in! Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge Studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Means we're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. Our normal Tuesday suspects are all lined up today. Glenn West talking Tigers at 1:30, and Sharie Aack an hour and a half from right now at 2:30 as the Saints open up training camp in full, in earnest, tomorrow. So very much excited to talking to Sharie about all of that. I've got my my top storylines in Saints camp coming up in 15 minutes from right now, and I do think there are some interesting things in terms of what could shake out over the next 6 weeks for these New Orleans Saints. So I'll get to some of that. Jamar Chase is looking for a new contract, and his owner is basically promising him one. We'll talk about that. Can LSU land Jonah Williams? Is the NFL going to play 18 games? All these topics and a little bit more here on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. So thanks for hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Today is the start of Big Ten Media Days, and while it's still theoretically summer and we don't have pressing matters on an LSU front to get to, I figured I would briefly take some time on this new era in the Big Ten. I personally, and we'll talk about this at the end of the show, so if you're still with us in 2 hours, you'll probably catch this. But I personally loved the touch that Oregon made on Big Ten Media Day today. They put a massive, what looks to be like a 25-foot inflatable duck in some river in Indianapolis, which I thought was fantastic. It looks ridiculous. And you know what? In July, I'm all for ridiculous. So I thought that was a very nice touch to signal Oregon's arrival into the Big Ten. I thought that was good. You're also going to see UCLA and USC and Washington make the trek over to Big Ten Media Days. And there are plenty of people, maybe yourself included, as you're driving around and listening to us going, man, USC and UCLA being in the Big Ten is so stupid. Their volleyball teams flying across the country to go play Rutgers on a Tuesday is absurd, and the basketball travel doesn't make any sense, and these rivalries don't work in football, and you've destroyed a Pac-12, and all that is reasonable if you dissent. But the fact of the matter is that it is here. So I would kind of rather talk about, okay, what does it mean now that we know that this is the situation? And, of course, this is all going to tie back to football. I could sit here and talk to you about baseball and how I think that UCLA's program is toast, and how I think that Washington and Oregon aren't going to be any good either, and how this is going to crush that side of the sport. And that is irrelevant to basically everyone listening to this show right now. We want to talk about football. And I'm very curious, just like I'm curious about Texas and Oklahoma, about USC, Washington, and Oregon going to the Big Ten. I'm not as concerned with UCLA because I just don't think anybody cares. I was flat line floored last year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was. I guess that was 3 years ago that LSU went to UCLA, and they were giving away tickets to anyone enrolled in a California high school. Like, that just blew my mind. And because of that, I choose to just ignore UCLA from a football perspective. But the other three, it is interesting because they are powerful brands and brands that have been very impactful in recent years. Washington just played for a national championship. Oregon's been knocking on the door of the playoff. Southern Cal just had a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, these are powerful brands, even if not recent national champions. So what does going to the Big Ten mean for them? And to start that conversation, I just kind of looked back at, okay, well, what are these programs? And specifically, I looked at Oregon and USC because I think they're more interesting than Washington, although I could be persuaded elsewhere. What is USC? Because for a lot of people my age, I was in high school and college when it looked like USC may never lose a game again. Like, it just looked like they were unstoppable. In 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, they just looked unstoppable. They finished in the top 5 every single year from 2002 to 2008. They were the preeminent power in the sport pre-Saban at Alabama. Now, we can have the conversation about the 2003 teams all we want and co-national championships, and that's all fine, and I'm here for that, but not for this segment. It's inarguable that at that point, Southern Cal was the top dog. They had multiple national championship banners. They had multiple Heisman Trophy winners. They had celebrities on the sideline. The Coliseum was rocking. Like, it was the biggest force in the sport. And since then, it really hasn't been. I went back over the last 10 years. I didn't pick that number for any specific reason. It just seemed like a reasonable sample size. Over the last 10 years, USC has won 64% of its football games. 64%. They win more than they lose, but kind of barely. Last year, 8-5. Before that, 11-3. 2021, they were 4-8. COVID year, whatever. Pac-12 was kind of a mess. 2019, 8-5. 2018, 5-7. Now, 2016 and 17, they win a total of 21-6. They were 11-3 and 10-3. That's very good over that 2-year stretch. But in 2015, they went 8-6. And in 2014, they went 9-4. Over a 10-year span, they've been unranked to finish the season 5 times and ranked 5 times. They have finished the season in the top 10 one time in the last decade. One time. They've been in the top 15 3 times in the decade. They've been okay. They've won 10 games one time in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons. So it's not like they're coming in riding high. This is not like Oklahoma coming into the SEC having won half of the last 28 conference championships. It's not. By contrast, Oregon, over the last 10 years, they've won 70%. They're 32-9. If you take out the COVID season, which they were 4-3, the Pac-12 was a mess during COVID. I'm not going to hold that against anybody. But that 32-9, if you go back to 2019, you're talking 44-11. That they've won 10 games every year. Since 2005, that's a long way back. I was in high school in 2005. Oregon has won 10-plus games 12 times in 18 years. I realize there are rental wins. I realize that there's a lot of Cal and Arizona State in there. There's a lot of Colorado in there. Joke, I get it. See, and 59-27 against 59-28. That SC stepping out a little bit more. They played Alabama. They go and play Ohio State. They play Notre Dame. And maybe Oregon's out-of-conference schedule doesn't quite line up with that. But I feel like Oregon has been a stronger brand than USC over the last 10 years as they both enter this new conference. And I believe right now, even though the track record is longer for Lincoln Riley, Alabama today or Penn State today, and you gave me And that's really the biggest deal, is who your coach is. Great coach can raise any program to an extent, and a bad coach can sink any program literally over the course of 2 decades. But as I look at the Big Ten, and I look at, there's the thought that, well, same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. There's a thought of they're going to the Big Ten or the Big 12 to the SEC. So I believe Oregon a lot of games. I believe Oregon will be a national championship contender because Oregon still to me feels like a college football program. And if you're looking at me going, well, huh? They are a college football program. They play in a big old stadium that's empty off campus. They don't have a strong alumni base that's there and ferocious every single Saturday. It's just one of the things that goes on in Los Angeles. And if Carson Palmer and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart are out there, then so is Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell. And if they're feels more sustainable. It feels like a better ecosystem. Now the question is, Uncle Phil, he's not calling the shots to dole out all this money for the uniforms and whatever. What is there? Is that a big deal? Oklahoma State's going through the same thing. Prop things up. There aren't a lot of people that are that rich. But I tend to think that USC is going to be okay. I think Oregon may thrive here. I think Texas may thrive. I'm a little concerned with Oklahoma. Actual wins and losses, like they'll fall off a cliff, just with the expectation every year. And that'd be pretty good. Penn State. I like Oregon's chances against Wisconsin. I like Oregon's chances against Iowa. Now, you start talking about Ohio State, okay, put your big boy pants on. We'll see what Michigan is now that Harbaugh's gone. But, like, if you told me that I was going to buy stock in Big Ten programs over the next 10 years, I just went back 10 years. Over the next 10 years, I'm taking Ohio State 1. I think I'm taking Oregon 2nd in this environment. And I could listen to an argument talked about Texas and the SEC. Everybody's probably listen to an argument you would take Texas 2nd. Now, I could listen to the same argument that they got too many cooks in the kitchen. That is really good, and you got to go to Tuscaloosa, and you got to go to Tiger State. Okay, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but if I got to buy somebody, I might. And SC, to me, maybe this cash infusion helps them. Maybe the fact that they just don't play in the same universe as the rest of us. You don't have that regional tie to fight within your state, and you don't have teams coming in with. And there's some thought that, man, when USC like for some of those fan bases that want to go out to Southern California, especially in December. Well, they don't play in December, but especially in like November. Real nice weather there. Like I think to me, SC a little bit, and I think I'm buying We'll see. I could be proven wrong, but you gotta stand for something before this thing starts. That's kind of where I'm leaning at this point. Our Tuesday show is brought to you. Got 5 of them as they get things cranked up coming up tomorrow. We'll do that next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to
The goal ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to a championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions throughout the playoffs. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with LeBears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
our listeners fire off their opinions on the Jim's Fire 5. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Charles Henniger join us for Anderson Seafood, Wesley at Nicholson. Andy Esco joins us from Las Vegas, and WBRZ's Michael Cobble stops by. Plus, we do first class, second class, no class. Live at lunch, 11 a.m. from Mike Anderson's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Glenn West talking Tigers in 15 minutes from right now. I took a notebook out this morning, first thing when I got to work, and I said, okay, I'm going to write out, before looking at any statistics, before coming up with any storylines or narratives, take a notebook out, just off the top of my head, first 5 asking Sharie in California about what's going on at Saints Camp, which, by the way, is around 78. I think the folks are going to be quite comfortable in SoCal over the next couple of weeks. Ahead. And so I did. And I wrote them down, and then I went and coincide with my thinking, but I didn't want to research this. I wanted this to feel, at least in my head, natural and organic. We've talked a lot of Saints over the last couple of months with not a lot of activity going on. Now it's time to get that started. What am I looking for? So the first thing I wrote term, it was offensive evolution. I do believe during training camp that you're going to see different. There are so many people writing radio, podcasts. There are so many people that have seen a lot at the beginning of time, and then it was Jameis Winston changed, but it's kind of Mackle, been there a long time. Ed Daniels, been there a long time. Covered the team for a long time. And have seen the offense kind of look the same. This take on a different role that we're looking at. More versatile than it has been. It was bad last year. Like, I think we'll get a sense, not in terms of the game plan, not in terms of we kind of expect when they get out. Right tackle. I don't think I'm all that interested in left tackle. They're going to put Taliesin Fuanga at left tackle. Unless he gets hurt, he will start at left tackle against Carolina. I believe they could see enough at camp to. I believe in terms of just whatever action he gets in the preseason, I believe at some point but I don't think they will pull. And I'm going to keep an eye on that. Is it Landon Young? Is it Olu that are going to hold the fort down? If Penny, because you've invested a lot in him, and you got to try. And the talent level we all think is probably there. It's what the story is at right tackle. Number 3. What he can be. And in 2023, he carried the ball 41 times. Only in 2 games did he have a substantial workload, including the last one against Atlanta. He carried the ball for 156 yards, which is anything. But what do we? And we. To me, I don't think he's going to hold out very much because you're going to lose a bunch of money for doing that. If Kendre Miller shows at some point in the next 6 weeks enough that the Saints brass looks and goes, that's the future, they're not going to bite on Alvin Kamara's ask for more money. They'll just pay him out this year. They'll sever ties at the end of the year. They'll move him off the books to an extent and move forward with Kendre Miller and whatever else they can scrounge up. I don't know what you can expect from Jamal Williams, but I think the end of the Kamara era is coming. That they may end up, but I'm curious what those reps look like. Number 4, storyline. Backup QB. I don't think that the Saints are under the illusion. I don't think they're under the impression that either Jay Kaner or Spencer Rattler is the future of the franchise. Now, man, would that be awesome if they were, because they are cheap, cheap, cheap. Derek Carr for 2 more years. You're basically just trying to find a backup quarterback. I think Spencer Rattler was there where you didn't anticipate he would be there. And I think roster spot, although Rattler certainly could, I think they're going to keep both of them because you don't see that. Can't imagine that Nathan Peterman is the guy that they're gonna bring in and hang on to. I think these 2 guys are fighting for that spot. Now we know in training camp, he did not want to cede any reps to backups. He felt for September. I don't know how Derek Carr handles that. I do know is that when the games come around in preseason, Derek Carr won't be playing much. Chris Olave is their number 1. What's next? Productive in college. Look in this draft. Can he break through? You signed Equimini St. Brown. Will he make the roster? Who knows? Who the last 4 seasons has been out there and on NFL rosters. Now, he hasn't been super productive. He had 600 yards 3 years ago. And beyond that, uber productive? No. But there is room for growth in this Saints number 3 receiver spot because they don't have any. It's no longer some of the old guys that you've known forever and ever, Traquan Smith and Marquez Callaway, and some of those guys that seem to always be hanging around. I think you're kind of ushering in a new group here. And the question is, who can step up? Because you've got Olave and you've got Shaheed. I'm not certain what you've got at tight end from a production standpoint. It doesn't feel like massive to me, especially with Juwan Johnson down. So who steps up as a third option? I'm curious about that. Now, Jordan, the question to you is, what did you notice about all 5 of my talking?
I mean, it's all offense.
It's all offense.
It's all offense.
And that was the point. That's how I came into this. This is just what I wrote down. I didn't try to go around. It's just kind of this is what I think. And I realized after I'd written 5 down, I went, I didn't write one single question about the defense.
I mean, well, when you're dealing with Dennis Allen, that's kind of like, if he's not going to be a good coach, at least the defense is going to be solid.
Yeah.
So that's why you have no questions about it because, I mean, since he's been in charge, the defense has been, top 10 every time?
Usually.
Yeah, so that's what we know, what we should expect.
It better be what you know.
If it's not,
if
we're in
that
trouble.
slips, it's big trouble, and that's kind of the point. And it's a lot of the same faces, and they're all a year older, and we'll kind of see how that works out. And we'll certainly talk defense, but I was just it struck me after I wrote them all down. I went, that's all on the offense, and that's maybe that is the great hope that you can have here in July. That maybe the offense can be transformative and be something that we're not anticipating because everything breaks right. And then you've got a team that's really worth watching in November. We'll see. We'll talk to Sharif about it 1 hour from right now. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. We'll come back and talk to Jake, not Jacob Beck. He'll be there, but we're not going to talk to him very much. Talk to Glenn West, though. That's next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. I'll tell you about $1,000 every single day. $1,000 off if you tell David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets the Hunt Palmer Show sent you over there. If you've just got a ton of clutter in your closets, you got shoes, you got clothes jammed every which way, hangers falling all over the place, maybe that dry cleaner plastic that you've ripped off and it's all sitting all over the floor. It's just disgusting. Get it together. In closets, maybe very much do, or maybe you can just use your space more efficiently if it's a big mess. I can promise you a couple things with David Duvall and his team when they handle your closet. One, it's going to be customized exactly to your specifications. Two, it's going to look beautiful. All of his work is fantastic aesthetically. You can see some of that on the website, onebathandclosets.com. Get that free consultation. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you. Get $1,000 off and get that closet of your .com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Tuesday's AFR powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. The Saints report for training camp out in Irvine, and Shea Dixon joins us for a recruiting recap. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
All right, let's talk some Tigers. Glenn West, Go 24/7. Our guest each and every Tuesday joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how are we doing? Well, yesterday on the show, it's going to have to work itself out from a legal perspective. LSU, and we'll see where that goes in a court of law. That's football perspective, since we've covered the legal side yesterday, what does that mean for LSU's secondary? No Javian Toviano for now.
Yeah, I mean, T.J. Woodland, Zy Alexander, J.K. Johnson, freshman you brought in, when you include Michael Turner. And so, the one thing, though, that you're probably hoping LSU kind of gets into shape, I think there's only a couple of guys that yeah, guys you look to gotten a lot of eyes on him since the prove it, and I think it's probably going to be those two, and then also I think you're looking at that trio, two boundary corner positions, obviously with Alexander. From everything we've heard and seen, he's done a really pick and picking things up at a rapid pace. So those are the kind of three that I'm looking at. K. Johnson and Jair Brown. I think those are a couple older guys, playing experience, but have been around a position as well.
I think this in this.
Yeah, I think most people probably thought that his role, his best more cornerback play. I would imagine he would have started the fall, competing at corner with those guys. Start for you, and I think that is a guy that because of how much they struggled last year, and they're bringing a lot of those guys back. They've added a few really guy that this entire secondary absolutely could come in area at safety. I think he's a true getting there. And from what I've seen, at least this summer, he looks like he's gotten a little bigger too. I mean, he's a legit six for that frame as well. So I think is deep in terms of guy Burns or scrimmage. And we'll just have to wait and see kind of how this cornerback position plays out. But I think it's kind of a TBD in terms of what to out of consistency last year.
It's not exactly like they get to ease into things. Lincoln Riley is just around the corner here. He's got a new quarterback, but obviously he's a highly touted one. Do you feel like as of Labor Day, 24 hours after that game is over in Vegas, you'll have a better understanding of what this LSU team is? I think we all kind of shuddered when we saw it last year against Florida State.
I sure hope so. It's a good litmus test. And I'll also say that, after watching that Florida State the first game last year, it looked like the offense was going to be a real, had to go through some things. And, I think we learned pretty quickly after that first game that, that offense was pretty elite. So I will caution by saying the first game won't tell us everything we need to know about this team, but I think it will give us a good kind of first look at the development you're hoping to see on this defense in particular. I think is where, you can really kind of hang your hat on what this first game should show us. I think that they have a really legit group of linebackers. I think that their edge rushers and pass rushing situations should be a lot better, with some of the guys that you're hoping to develop into the program this offseason. You still have those concerns on the interior D line and kind of who to expect to shake up that room and who can contribute. But I do think this is a group that we should be able to learn a lot from that first USC game in Las Vegas.
LSU lands DJ Pickett's commitment. Don't see it go their way with an in-state player in Jabari Antoine, and then now you got Jonah Williams, who's potentially coming in. But these are big name corners and safeties. That's kind of been Corey Raymond's MO in Baton Rouge. Do you anticipate LSU goes big game hunting from here on out with the defensive backs, and that they're able to land more than they don't?
Oh yeah, I think that's probably the biggest recruitment outside of the quarterback has been DJ Pickett in terms of just position of need, the caliber of player that he is. That was such a huge get for LSU, and one that to be honest, 48 hours before it happened, I wasn't sure was going to break LSU's way. So that's just a really good kind of sign that Corey Raymond's done a great job of building relationships with that player. And he's done that, across his career, right? I mean, this is a guy who's had a long history of success with recruiting the position, recruiting both cornerbacks and safeties. And I think it should tell you a lot that a guy like Jonah Williams is coming in this weekend and is fired up about it. And I do think that LSU is in a good spot with him. I wouldn't say that, it's a for sure deal that they're going to get him. They still got to do their due diligence here over the next couple of weeks, but they've put themselves in a really good spot for him. They've got a couple of local players, Aiden Anding and Jace Thomas, who are really exciting young players. They don't have the commitment from Anding, but they're working on him as well. So they're in a good spot here, I think, with blending the elite talent that you always expect LSU to get at that position with a lot of the local players with high upside as well. So. Yeah, look, this has been a typical year of recruitment so far for Corey Raymond. I would expect it to continue, and obviously it's a huge deal as you kind of build out the future of this secondary.
Glenn West, our guest here, can go 24/7. He's a senior right over there for all your team coverage. You can check out 24/7 Sports. Go 24/7 for the LSU side of things. He and Sonny do an awesome job. Glenn's with us every single Tuesday. We'll talk next week right on the eve of fall camp. Thanks, Glenn.
All right, thanks, Hunt. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. It's always our pleasure to chat with Glenn West. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jonah Williams at the top of hour number 2 and what I've heard about him from a football perspective and what I've heard about him from a baseball perspective, which is a question that I've gotten asked a few times over the last week. So we'll get to some of that in hour number 2. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. I will be there tonight for sports trivia. Nicholson location, 8:30. Be watching some baseball. Drinking some cold beer, eating some awesome wings, calling out trivia questions. You can win Plucker's gift cards. Best team name gets a Plucker's gift card. We always have an LSU football round. So if you're looking for something to do this evening, grab a team, come out yourself to Plucker's on Nicholson, 8:30 for some sports trivia. Fantastic award-winning jumbo chicken wings, awesome sides, and that cold beer. Plucker's, if you don't like our wings, we'll give you the bird. When we come back, I believe we're talking some Jamar Chase and what his contract situation may look like. Is that the case? It is. We'll talk about that coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy, evolvept.com. Robbie Bolton and his team, 20 years as a physical therapist here, most of that in the Baton Rouge area. And this is something that Robbie has told me. A lot of people go through physical therapy, whether it's just the pains of getting older or there's been some sort of an injury or an accident. And a lot of people don't have a great experience with their physical therapist. If that's the case and you were told to go to this place and you went to that place and they didn't really talk to you that much and they gave you some exercises, sent you home, asked how you were feeling, and you just didn't feel like you were getting all that much better, well, Robbie Bolton and his team are not going to treat you that way. When you go into Evolve Physical Therapy, you're going to be with a physical therapist for the entirety of your appointment. They're going to be helping you with the stretches, with the exercises. They're going to be asking you questions. They're going to be hands-on with the dry needling and the cupping and the soft tissue manipulation. All that stuff is going to go on during your appointment. They're never going to go and do some paperwork in the other room while you try to do some stretches. That's just not the way they do business over at Evolve Physical Therapy. So if you're looking to get back to your active self, whether it's a youth athlete in your family that's 10 years old and got hurt playing youth baseball, or 65-year-old looking to get back on the golf course, if you're dealing with some sort of pain, want to get back to your active self, Robbie Bolton and his team at Evolve Physical Therapy are here for you. They're on Starring near Highland Road, or you can check them out online at evolvept.com. It's Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports, evolvept.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
Up on Wednesday's OTB Day 3 from SEC Media Days. We'll recap all the highlights from Day 2. We'll bring you the latest from the LSU baseball roster, who else is gone, who's staying, and how did Paul Skeens do in the All-Star game? Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
There are a lot of things in the professional world that I'm completely unequipped to do. One of them, unequivocally, is to get into a room with billionaires and negotiate contract terms. I am wildly unqualified for that. I'm way too non-confrontational, way too much of a people pleaser, and I could never go in there and demand cash or hold out or do any of these things. And because of that, Jamar Chase has not asked me to represent him for his contract negotiations moving forward. However, I feel like his camp's got to be feeling pretty good about where things stand.
I feel like you would probably be one of the worst agents ever.
of all time.
Yeah, probably.
I would have a bunch of unemployed league minimum clients.
Yep.
Be like, oh, that's fine if that's what you got. Like
that
that'll
would be
that'll
actually
be great.
That's true. That you could actually probably have a niche there where you're just the agent for all of the guys who barely make rosters. So you're just trying to get the bare minimum.
But I feel like those guys like have some agents fighting for them and like trying. And I just
Maybe,
be like, oh,
yeah.
what do you got? Like, how much do you have under the cap? You got well. I mean, if you can make that work, that we'll take it. And it would not go very well. I'd be fired on the spot by a lot of different players. But Jamar Chase has not asked me to do that. So I feel like his camp's looking pretty good based on this quote. Chase did go to the team's mandatory minicamp. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals told WLWT that we're going to bend over backwards to make it happen, talking about Chase's long-term deal. I can't tell you when it's going to get done, but the reel has been cast. And I think I heard Charles Handegriff talk about this on his show a little bit earlier, and I think there's a ton of truth to this. You get these owners who are getting up in age, and when they feel like there's a potential to do something great, like you really have their attention. I think there are some owners who understand that in all of sports that their franchises are not in a very advantageous spot, whether it's market size, current roster, salary cap situation, spot relative to the rest of your division, all these types of things. And they're not really in a hurry to just go dump a bunch of money into it to try to figure something out. Like Jerry Reinsdorf with the Bulls or the White Sox, like he's not about to go dump a bunch of money into those two franchises because they stink, and they're no hope. And for most of the time, ownership with Cincinnati has kind of just been content to just kind of get on by, take your paycheck. You realize you got a huge asset that's appreciating yearly, got huge TV contracts, nice payout from the league. Like, it's all good. But then you get up in age and you kind of look and go, oh, I got this Burrow guy, and we made the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and we've played the Chiefs in the playoffs 3 of the years that Joe's been here. Like, okay, let's try to push this thing off the dock. And part of that is going to be paying Jamar Chase an exorbitant amount of money. You know, Justin Jefferson signed his deal this offseason, and he got 4 years, $140 million, and that's basically right where Jamar is going to land. And so it's a sizable move up for Jamar Chase relative to the salary cap, and it's going to cause T. Higgins after this year where he plays on the franchise tag to move on and be a salary cap casualty. And that's going to be kind of the situation that Cincinnati is in. You've got Joe Burrow making a ginormous amount of money, and you've got Jamar Chase becoming one of the top 3 or 4 paid wide receivers in the NFL, if not the top. And that makes your salary cap numbers look a little more difficult. It's hard to reinvest in that offensive line over and over again. It's hard to keep the defense together, and it makes drafting so much more important. But from an LSU perspective, as we talk about this, like Joe's got his money and Jamar's is coming, and I anticipate those two guys being together in Cincinnati for the next 4 or 5 years. And that's going to be the foundation with which they build their offense around. They'll try to make it work everywhere else as best they can, but that's going to be the pillar that holds this thing together. We've seen Joe Mixon move on, and they're going to get a little younger at that position. We're going to see T. Higgins move on. You've seen their tight end Hurst move on as well. Like, they're not going to be able to keep everybody that they had for those 2 really good runs in the playoffs, where they went to Arrowhead and won, and they went to Buffalo and won, and they've beaten the Ravens, and like they've had a good go of it, and a lot of those guys have been a part of it. They're not going to be a part of it now. But the 2 guys that we care about, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that kind of bring us and lure us into the Cincinnati football landscape from down here in South Louisiana, those 2 guys I think are going to be around for a good bit of time, and it's just a matter of time. I would anticipate probably before this season starts that Jamar Chase will be signed to a long-term deal with Cincinnati, and that's great for him. It's great for Joe, and it's great for those of us who have kind of adopted the Bengals as a team on the other side of the NFL from the New Orleans Saints. We'll just see when that happens and just how much Jamar is able to cash in for. Thankfully, he won't have me doing his dirty work for him, so he'll probably get a sizable chunk of change. That's hour 1 in the books here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. If you missed any of the first hour, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound, and, of course, on YouTube. When we come back, Jonah Williams. Can LSU get the 5-star safety, and can he play baseball here? We'll get to that after Sports Center.
Sports Center.
I'm Christine Lisi. Jets defensive end Hassan Reddick's contract stalemate continues as training camp kicks off. He did not report today because he hasn't gotten the deal he's been looking for. The Jets tried to sign him to an extension at the time of his trade from Philadelphia, are still open to that, but will not negotiate with a player not in camp. Patriots quarterback Jacoby Brissett enters camp as the team starter. This is day one of Big Ten Media Days, the conference expanding to 18 teams this season with the 4 West Coast additions, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, and one of those newcomers should have everybody's attention, believes Paul Feinbaum show host Paul Feinbaum.
When you think about Oregon moving over to the Big Ten, nobody really saw this coming a couple of years ago, but they are really on the same level as Ohio State, and I think Dylan Gabriel may be the difference. And the game being out there really favors Oregon. I think Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches in the country right now.
NBA veteran guard Reggie Jackson agreed to a buyout with the Hornets, plans to sign with the 76ers after clearing waivers, reports ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. So Philly adding another veteran to contribute off the bench.
Here's one stat that's super simple to remember. Discover automatically doubles the cash back on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. With Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Pluckers Wing Bar. 2 locations in Nicholson, just south of campus. Bluebonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. Get on by, get some Pluckers wings in you today. Some cold draft beer. Sports on TV. No better spot than Pluckers. Get some food and watch a game. They bring you our Tuesday shows each and every week. Sharie Aack coming up in 30 minutes, previewing Saints camp, which breaks tomorrow. Just saw some video of Bryce Young reporting to Panthers camp, seen Joe Burrow report to Bengals camp today with a new haircut. We'll talk a little bit about that. How many games the NFL want to play? We'll talk a little bit about that in the second segment of this hour as well. To start things here in the second hour, let's talk some LSU football, specifically in recruiting. And the biggest name of the last 2 weeks has been DJ Pickett, and LSU was able to secure his commitment. Of course, did not get the commitment of Jabari Antoine, who decides he's going to head down to South Beach for the time being. And play at Miami. And kind of the next big name that folks are looking at is Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams, I think most of you are very familiar with. He's a safety out of Galveston. He's a 5-star by 24/7. He's a 5-star by Rivals. He's a 5-star by ESPN. He is a 4-star by On3, but all of them has him ranked as the number 1 safety in the nation. And LSU is very much in the mix for Jonah Williams. This is the type of prospect that I expect LSU to be in on very, very frequently with Corey Raymond here. We've discussed this a lot over the last 3 weeks, most of it framed around Pickett and Antoine, but Williams matches this profile as well. As long as Corey Raymond is the head defensive backs coach at LSU, I expect that the biggest names in the country will be on LSU's board and will be interested. This is one of those deals where a lot of times things that kids do on social media don't mean anything, and you try to read something into that, but it's really just the lyrics of a song, and you try to see something in this and sometimes you can get caught up in the lives of 17-year-olds and not really understand exactly what you're looking at, and there's really no reason to be there. But when you talk about DBU and the power that brand has, and you talk about folks believing in that in social media and the reputation that LSU has in that world, it's real. And when Corey Raymond was here in his first stint, the number 1 corner in the country was almost always at least considering LSU very strongly. Now, sometimes Savion Smith doesn't come here, and sometimes Patrick Surtain doesn't come here, but sometimes Kevin Tolliver does come here. Sometimes you look up and Derek Stingley's in your backyard and he does come here. Tre'Davious White does come here. Jamal Adams does come here. Grant Delpit does come here. But you were always in the mix for those guys. And those guys that I just rattled off, some had brilliant college careers, some had middling college careers. But they were thought of at the time as good as you were going to get in that class in the defensive backfield. Guys, and I'm for that. You're not going to bat 1,000 if you're going after the number one guy in the country every single year. But if you bat 650, like, you're getting some really, really talented dudes in. And you supplement that with, generally speaking, there's a couple 4-star corners in the state of Louisiana in most high school classes. And you go get that big-name fish from outside the area and then bring in the couple from inside the area and then grab that 3-star that plays really hard from New Orleans or down the bayou, and all of a sudden that guy becomes a really solid player for you. And that's basically how LSU's secondaries were born. You end up with Patrick Peterson and Morris Claiborne and Tyrann Mathieu and Brandon Taylor and Eric Reed and Craig Lawston, and the list goes on, and Jalen Mills and Tre'Davious White, and then you got Jamal Adams and Grant Delpit and Christian Fulton and Derek Stingley. Like, you know the list. You understand how this process went the first time around. And I expect it to go similarly this time around. And Jonah Williams is of this ilk. He's 6'3.5". He's 205 pounds, 210 pounds, depending on where you look. And he's an incredible athlete. And LSU's in the mix, and A&M's in the mix, and Texas is now in the mix, and Oklahoma's in the mix, and Oregon is very much in the mix. And there's been a lot of smoke about Oregon, and we understand why. They've got a powerful brand. They've got a really good coach. They play really good defense, and they got a lot of NIL money. It's an attractive place to go. It's also not all that close to Galveston, Texas. You know what kind of is? Baton Rouge. You know who is DBU? LSU. You know where Corey Raymond coaches? LSU. And you know who plays some pretty good baseball? LSU. Jonah Williams is thought of as a two-sport athlete. And so I checked with my sources on the baseball side of things and said, look, if this guy had never picked up a football or laced up some cleats and snapped on a helmet, would LSU be interested in Jonah Williams, the baseball player? I was told by a source in the LSU baseball program, absolutely. He's a massively athletic talent and certainly a guy that LSU would be recruiting if football was not even in the equation. And I think that's been a question that I've been asked a good bit, and that's probably a question that a lot of people have considered. Like, yeah, that's cool to sound like you can play two sports, but like, this is a pretty high level to do that. Is it just kind of a cool niche thing, or are you really pursuing that? And I think that there is a significant pitch on the baseball side of things. And to me, that does matter. We'll see how much it matters. I don't know. I've never met Jonah Williams. I can't tell you what Jonah Williams thinks about baseball, what he thinks about LSU's baseball program, what he thinks about the fact that Oregon's going to the Big Ten and how that impacts baseball. Like, I don't know. But it feels like if you're just going to read the situation and try to understand all the factors that are available to us to understand, LSU's got a ton to sell on the football side and a ton to sell on the baseball side. Right now, Oregon does not have much to sell on the baseball side, and LSU geographically is in a better spot. You listen to the experts, those who follow recruiting, those who do this for a living, Shea Dixon, Billy Embody, Sam Spiegelman, guys that we have on the show, and most think that, yeah, this is still a hotly contested race, and the recruiting prediction machine and the crystal ball favors Oregon to an extent, but I think LSU's in the mix here. And we'll see if they can get it to the finish line. He's expected to be on campus this weekend. Does that change the way that we think about this? I'll tell you this much. We've watched the complete overhaul of the offensive line under Brad Davis. We're watching the complete overhaul of the defensive line by Bo Davis. And I believe you're going to see the overhaul of this defensive backfield by Corey Raymond. It starts with DJ Pickett there. Maybe PJ Woodland is a guy that's going to be a cornerstone for you. And then you start bringing in guys like this, like Jonah Williams. All of a sudden, you've got your talent level back to where you're used to it. I can tell you this. Like, when I started covering LSU day-to-day and we were going to practice a lot, it was in 2010, 2011, 2012, and it was impossible going out to practice not to gravitate toward the defensive backs because they were so talented. They had such big names. They had so much fun while we were out there at practice, and the energy was just off the charts. And that was gone the last couple of years from LSU's defense because you're looking at a group that could not be cocky and confident and play with swagger as they were continuing to give up touchdown after touchdown after first down after chunk play after chunk play after touchdown. You've got to stop that. And I think that LSU's well on its way to doing that. But you've got to bring in guys like this. I think it's important to realize LSU's got a geographic advantage here over Oregon, and I think there's a baseball aspect to this that may matter. I would highly recommend you check out Shea Dixon and Billy Embody's thoughts on it a little more than mine, but I'm giving you my 2 cents here, and I think LSU's got a chance. We'll see how things progress over the weekend with Jonah Williams, the 5-star safety out of Galveston, Texas. All right, moving right along here on a Tuesday edition. Our show is brought to you by Pluckers. Sharie Aack coming up in about 15 minutes talking Saints. When we come back, the NFL is strongly considering 18 games. Do we think they'll go there, and what does that mean? That's next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
It is storm season. Protect yourself from those storms. Give yourself the peace of mind of knowing that those storms are not going to cost you power. Boudreaux's Electric can help you with that. They're a certified Generac dealer. They are a premier Generac generator dealer. And you hear me do this read every single day, and you never hear me say, well, if you just pay them extra, they'll give you these perks. That's not how Boudreaux's Electric works. If you're a client and a customer of Boudreaux's Electric, you will get top-tier customer service because that's what Neil and Melissa believe in. They've done this for 40 years. There is no club offer or VIP plan. You just get your Generac generator. You get the right one. You get the warranty. You get the monitoring. You get the service. You get everything that goes with doing business with Boudreaux's Electrical. If you want to give yourself the peace of mind and know that you're not going to lose power during a storm, whether you evacuate and then you want to come back to a cool house that's lights work and the fridge is on, as opposed to a hot house that's dark and you got to throw everything out of the fridge, Boudreaux's Electric is your one-stop shop. Check them out online, boudreauxelectrical.com, or give them a call, 985-397-1562, 985-397-1562. It's Boudreaux's Electrical.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Sandiger, join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Roca Pizzeria on Government Street in Mid-City. Mike Scarborough from TigerBait.com joins us, as well as Wes Reynolds from Las Vegas. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Wednesday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
So the worst kept secret in all of professional football is basically out there now. ESPN with a report earlier today, and the NFLPA Executive Director Lloyd Howell telling the Washington Post earlier today that there are very, very, very high-level talks going on right now about adding an 18th game, which is coming. And it's just another in the seemingly endless line of decisions that are inevitably made because of money. It's money, 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 money. And it's just very difficult for me to rationalize the NFL. Well, no, it's not, actually. I shouldn't even say that. It's very easy to figure this out. Like, the NFL is fighting a battle off the field in courtrooms about player health and safety and why players who have played in this league are dealing with complications into their later lives. And they're paying out billions of dollars because of it. And they say all the right things. We're looking into everything. We're studying all the data. We're eliminating hitting during practice. We're putting the big things on your helmets during practice so that there's no helmet-to-helmet contact in workouts, and you're doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, you're going, well, yeah, that, and we'd really like to play on Thursdays so we can only give you 2 days of actual rest, and we'd like to play on Saturdays and Sundays and Mondays, and we'd like to play 17 games, and now we're going to play 18 games, and they just more and more and more and more money. You just got to get money. Well, what? Let's play in Berlin, because we can play at an earlier time slot, and we can grow the game international, and they can spend more money, and we can get the television rights over to Amazon, and they can spend more money. And just everything we do is always geared toward money. Jags don't have 2 of their home games this year because they're going to play in London. Whatever. We get more money over there. And I just don't love it, and I find it to be disingenuous. And I understand that ultimately Roger Goodell's job is to make the owners more money. But kind of like is the case in collegiate athletics, and it also translates to the NFL, I just wish at some point we would make some decision that wasn't based solely on money. A 16-game regular season is plenty. I've never been through a 16-game regular season. Never. But I see Jacob Hester every day. I work with Brandon Taylor every Saturday in the fall. I've sat across from Jeremy Hill 5 days a week. And everyone who's played in the NFL suggests that, like, by week 5 or 6, like, your body is shot. And no one really cares because we've got to go create more television revenue. And, like, sometimes I'm resistant to change just because I don't like change, and I'm just fine with the way things were. The dumb example that I give all the time on this show about my resisting change is that, like, my group of 10 friends that plays fantasy football every year, they get into a yelling match via group text every single July and August about the rules of fantasy football. And we got to add another quarterback, and we got to take away defense, and you need to go PPR. Well, no, it needs to be a half of PPR, and they're going on and on and on about all this stuff, and I feel like they're just changing stuff just to make changes. It's fine the way it was. It's a lucky game that helps you out entertainment-wise on Sunday, and somebody gets some cash at the end of it, and it's all fine. And sometimes I feel that way about change. That's inconsequential, stupid stuff. I realize I prefaced it by saying it was stupid. Like, this is important. It's people's lives. It's people's health. And whether or not you feel like there's a significant risk in adding 2 games from 16 to 18 in terms of CTE or knees or elbow ligaments or wrists or broken legs or concussions, whatever the case may be, like, it certainly doesn't help. And I just feel like it's unnecessary. And, like, I'm not going to stamp my feet and throw a fit and start crying on the air because they're doing this. I sense the fact that they're talking out of both sides of their mouth with this player safety thing when you're continuing to do this. Who cares if you're going to put the pads on the top of their helmets during training camp if you're sending them back out there for an hour and a half more, 2 hours more of in-season football? Like, it just seems ridiculous to me. I think it's more so the hypocrisy and the dual nature of this decision-making more than actually the decision. That's where I stand on it. And if we're going to play 18 games, we need to have 2 byes. And if you want to rationalize it saying we're going to have the Super Bowl right before President's Day, so it's actually a bank holiday and people can have that Monday off, all that, like, whatever. It just feels like it's unnecessary to me, and we're only making decisions because of money, and we're also directly contradicting some of the things we're trying to do on the other side here with player safety. The hypocrisy, I think, is what's getting to me. I'll take both of y'all's thoughts on this because I may be the whiny idiot standing in the corner, but, like, how do you feel about going from 16 inevitably to 18 in this era where we know what we know about player health?
I think it's I think you're right. It's very contradictory of what the NFL has tried to give this message of player safety in the last 5 to 6 years with the whole concussion protocol problem, and now they want to keep extending the season. I just wonder where it ends. Do they just continue to keep? Do they make it to where we have a full year-long season? I mean, why wouldn't they? You know, they've added so many games recently. I just wonder if there's ever going to be a cap to it. Like, why wouldn't they continue to try to just add to the season?
There's got to be at some point a point of diminishing returns. But to your point, I don't know where that is. I don't know if that's at 20. I don't know if it stops at 18. Like, I'm not sure. Certainly, if you did this all, which is not feasible, you can't play year round. But I think you're bumping up upon the end of what's physically possible, and it just. Again, I don't even know. Like, I can say confidently that if they had started this league in the 20s and they had played 18 regular season games starting in the 20s and they were signing up to play 18 games again this season and next season, you wouldn't hear a peep out of me. That would just be what it was, and we played 18 games and it's tough and it's a grueling schedule, and that would be what it was.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're telling me that we've got to do player safety, and it's the most important thing that we do, and we got to take care of our athletes and all this kind of stuff. And you're saying that all the while making all these decisions that completely fly in the face of that. We're changing the rules on tackling. We're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, well, how about just limit the amount of times they play football?
Yeah.
But that would cut the pocketbooks, and no one wants to do that. So it doesn't work.
Yeah, the hip drop tackle, that's where I'm the biggest on, because how do they expect people to make tackles next year?
Can't hit the QB low, can't hit him high, can't hit anybody high, you can't hip drop. If you're behind them, I don't even know really how you
can't do nothing if you're behind them. So it's like you're expecting just like, what are you supposed to do with Derrick Henry? You know? Like, what are you supposed to do with that? If I can't hit him low, I can't grab him by his waist, it's a flag, 15 yards. What are you supposed to do with that? McCaffrey, what am I supposed to do with that? So I don't know what they're going to do. Like, we're going to see what football is in the next 10 years.
It's a crazy thought, but I can promise you this. They're not going to back up games. They're not going to play less.
No.
They're not going to play less games overseas. And they're not. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. So we'll see when this happens. But the fact is that they always had a goal of getting to 18, and it was not palatable for them to go from 16 to 18. So instead, they asked for 18. No, we're not doing 18. Well, how about 17? Then all of a sudden, you're the good cop because you're backing it up at one, and you're conceding. All the while, you understand that inevitably you're going to get there. And I could moan and complain about the single season record books being altered now, and that's something they did in baseball, and they went from 154 to 162, and now when you've gone from 16 to 17 in the NFL, like, that's just part of it, I guess, and I'm not going to throw a fit about that. I feel like there's a lot of disingenuous things being said by the NFL executives, and this is just, I think, the latest in a line of those. So we'll see when that shows up, if it takes a preseason game off the table, if it adds a mandatory another bye, if you play deeper into the spring. I'm not really sure, but we know that eventually 18 games is coming, just a matter of when that decision is made. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Pluckers Wing Bar, 2 locations, Nicholson, just south of campus, Bluebonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. Get on by Pluckers tonight for sports trivia. We'll be there at the Nicholson location, 8:30. We'll have you out of there by 10 o'clock. You can win Pluckers gift cards, answer some trivia, drink some cold beer, eat some delicious wings. Always a good time at Pluckers on Nicholson on Tuesdays. We'll be there at 8:30. I'll be watching Cubs Brewers, so you'll be able to watch me in some agony, very likely, as the Cubs try to win Game 2 of that series. We'll come back with Sharie Aack talking Saints, who get things cranked up tomorrow from Irvine, California. That's next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com. Nothing's more important than the security of your home and your family. If you're looking to put a security system in that's got some cameras, Mitchell Fisher and his team are happy to help you with that. They understand where they need to put the sensors, where they need to put the cameras. They got the app that you can download on your phone. You can stream all day long, 24/7. You can get the photographs and images and video of your front door and your back door, and anywhere that you choose to point some pictures. You can get playback. You can pause it. And you don't have to pay cloud storage fees. They handle all of that over at Audio Video Security Solutions. And when you work with them, like, they'll handle the cameras. They can get the equipment. They will bring that in for you, and it's all controlled by an app right there on your phone. You can set your alarm. You can disarm your alarm. You can check out your cameras and make sure that you've got some peace of mind. Know that your home is safe and protected because of the security system that you've got from the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. If you like some images of what that can look like, go to Instagram, AVSS_BR is where you can find Audio Video Security Solutions, and check them out online. It's avssla.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. The Saints report for training camp out in Irvine, and Shea Dixon joins us for a recruiting recap. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
I'm looking on Instagram at the lunches that have been served at Media Days this summer, and I'm looking at the SEC. It looks like there was a carving station with some mac and cheese, some vegetables with a balsamic drizzle over the top.
Sounds nice.
It looks pretty appetizing, along with a chocolate peanut butter pie that was served at SEC Media Days. And then the same reporter that took that picture is at Big Ten Media Days today. Got what looks like some real dry bread with a couple of pieces of turkey on it, and some chips to the side. So advantage SEC in a big way in terms of the culinary situation at Media Days. A guy who's probably eaten a media buffet or two in his day, Sharie Aack, WDSU, talking some Saints with us here. But I want to talk about media buffets first, Sharie. You enjoy the complimentary food that goes along with your gig?
Sometimes it depends on where I'm at. Like, some of these stadiums have great food and some just don't have any good food.
How's the Dome these days?
What's up?
How's the Dome these days in terms of the food?
It's not that good.
Do they have it up in the press box, or do you have to go down to the bottom? Like, when I remember for the national championship game when LSU played Bama, the food was way down in the bottom.
That's only for special events like
Okay.
Super Bowls, semifinals, and championship games.
So they got in the press box for the normal Sunday kickoffs?
Yeah, in a press box. And it's usually like, depends. It could be like red beans and rice on a Sunday, or
that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Where'd you go on
chicken.
vacation?
I went to Key West.
How was that?
It was awesome until Friday. We got stuck in Atlanta, the place I don't want to be stuck at the most is Atlanta. 18 hours. Thanks, Delta.
Oof. That sounds not great. What do you do in an airport for 18 hours?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I start like popping up ESPN. I pop up like Peacock and just anything. Anything. I was getting frustrated.
All right, where are you right now?
Irvine.
How's that?
California.
I checked the extended forecast. Looks like a lot of highs around 78.
Yeah, it's about 80 degrees. A little slight wind here, and I don't see a cloud in the sky.
That sounds pretty nice. All right, give us the update. I understand no fans will be allowed at Saints training camp this year while they're out in Irvine. So what's y'all's availability look like? What's your filming ability look like? What can we expect over the next few weeks from the media that's there?
We're allowed to be at the entire practice. We can shoot the first about 45, 50 minutes of practice. It's like individual drills that we can use in our cameras. And after that, we put it down for 7-on-7 and team drills. So, and we get to sit around and watch it and, take the notes of, each play. And then at the end, they do the interviews, like 4 players, and that's a wrap. I was told that once they're done, we got to get off the field. Irvine doesn't want us on their field. So that's what we're doing with. At least the weather's nice.
Yeah, all right, that'll work. All right, Alvin Kamara reportedly is going to show up to camp and be available tomorrow. Do you expect that to be the case every single day? And do you expect the Saints to figure something out with his contract, or just tell him, hey, you're under contract right now, go play?
My guess is if he's here, which he is, it looks like they may come to a resolution with a contract extension at some point. He's making a little more than $10 million at 29 years old. But the thing is, Hunt, that he hasn't been so productive the last 2 seasons, and making $10.2 million this year after the last 2 years, he should be pretty happy. So maybe like Mickey came up with a solution or resolution to the problem, and now that he's here, he reported to training camp, and maybe they knock out a little extension for him, or maybe give him a little bit more money this year. So we shall see his availability. If he's here, I think he's going to practice. You're not going to just come out here not to practice.
What are you excited to see tomorrow? Where do your eyes go first?
Eyes go to see who's on the field. If Chase Young is doing any kind of work off to the side. Want to find out how close he is to actually practice. And I thought maybe after the first week he would get out there and practice with the team, maybe day one in the pads Monday after they have that day off Sunday. I just want to see what this team is going to look like. I know day one doesn't really give you what you want to see when it comes to the offense, but it's going to be fun to see what that offense looks like. So all eyes will be on Kamara, of course. I think that's the biggest story. And anyone else, that got drafted like Fuaga and I'm interested to see Kendre Miller because he's gonna be a big part of this offense, and Jamal Williams as well after only having one touchdown in the Petty touchdown against the Falcons. So those are the things I'd be keeping my eye on in the 2 weeks that we're here.
You feel like Alvin Kamara is going to get something worked out. Will Kendre Miller's performance in training camp alter the way the Saints think about Alvin Kamara's future with the team?
I think, with him, he showed glimpses and flashes last year. For him, he knows that he has to stay healthy. That was the issue for him. He could not stay on the field last year, and I think that hindered his rookie season. So I think that they feel good with him as being the second or the third running back. But the problem is no one can get hurt, especially Kamara. If he gets hurt, that's when the offense goes a little sideways, and he's going to be the focal point to Clint Kubiak offense.
Yeah, I wrote down my top 5 storylines in camp earlier today, and all of them revolved around the offensive side of the ball. Right tackle was one of them. Backup quarterback was one of them. Number 3 wide receiver was one of them. Is there another aspect of this offense that intrigues you?
It is the offensive line. The three essentially new starters: Fuaga, Penning, and Nick Saldiveri. They're going to go as far as that offensive line goes. You have McCoy and you have Reeves, but it's the other 3 guys. Can they keep him healthy and upright? And if they can, they could do at least a half better job than they did last year. I would think he got sacked 34 times and hit close to 60 times. If they can do better than that, half better, they can just cut half that. I think they'll be fine, or even get to 20 to 22 sacks. They'll be much better in terms of efficiency in the passing game and run game.
So I'm curious, if no one gets hurt, take injuries completely out of this, are you 100% sure that Fuaga and Penning will be the tackles in the first game against Carolina?
They're going to see how Penning works at right tackle. That's the big question mark. I do think that Fuaga at left tackle is a lock there.
Yes.
You really don't have many choices, in terms of tackles. They just don't. Landon Young. If Landon Young takes over for Trevor Penning, then we have issues. We have serious issues.
Yeah, there's no question about that. So I'm kind of with you there. I think there's a chance that Penning could fail the test here in camp, and you'd have to plug in Landon Young or Ole Udoh or one of these guys, or try to sign somebody. But I think Fuaga's pretty well entrenched there at left tackle. Do you have any thoughts on the backup quarterback spot?
I think that's Jake Haener. That's Jake Haener's to lose right now. Just watching through minicamp and OTAs, I thought he was a step ahead, and he should be, because he's a year under his belt in the NFL, even though he was suspended for 6 games. I just think he looks sharp, a little bit sharper than Rattler. Rattler has the potential, but it's just not there yet. That's going to be a fun one to watch. It's always fun to watch the backup quarterbacks. Whenever it was Drew Brees, it's going to be a little more fun to watch it now that it's a second-year player and a rookie going for the number 2 spot.
You're down there in the city in New Orleans. What's the pulse of the fan base as we enter this training camp? This is supposed to be one of the most exciting times of the year. Does it feel that way?
No, not yet. And maybe it's better that way, instead of having all these expectations of, oh man, this team's going to be awesome, they're going to be great, and then they fall flat and go 7-10 or 8-9. Maybe it's just it's built better this way to think, I'm not sure if the team's going to be good this year. I don't know what we're going to see. So that's the pulse. That's what it is right now. The confidence isn't too high with the fan base.
Last year at this time, I think there was some tepid optimism, but you looked at the rest of the division and that gave you more optimism. Does that still factor in that we still don't think the division's very good?
I think it's a little bit better though, Hunt. And I know people may be down on Kirk Cousins. I think he's good. He's a good quarterback. He seems to be the Saints' kryptonite. Baker Mayfield surprised everyone. Maybe he does take a step back. And who knows what, the Panthers are going to look with a new head coach and Dave Canales, with Bryce Young, a second-year quarterback, and having him. He did wonders for Baker Mayfield last year in Tampa as the offensive coordinator. So it's always a coin toss, because just because it was bad last year doesn't mean it's going to be bad again this year, and it doesn't mean the Saints are going to be bad again. It's just like such a coin flip when it comes to just some of these teams in this division. So I think it's still a 9 or 10 win team is going to win the South.
All right, tell us what the schedule is for tomorrow for y'all.
Practice starts between 9 and 9:30. The first practice is always a light practice. It's just helmets pretty much. It's almost like a glorified walkthrough. Probably going to last an hour and 15 minutes, and then we're going to talk to the players. We're going to talk to Dennis Allen. We got a big special tomorrow night from 6:30 to 7 on this training camp with James Hurst and Jim Morris. And James is our newest Saints on 6 analyst. So we got a lot going on, man. We got a lot going on to cover. And of course, the storyline once again for that special and anything tomorrow is going to be Alvin Kamara on the field.
Coach Moore hadn't lost a step, has he?
No, man. He's so funny, man. I'm still telling jokes at 89 years old.
Well, y'all enjoy the weather out there. Enjoy camp. We'll be watching tomorrow for that special, and we'll talk next week.
All right, Hunt. Anytime, man.
Sharie Aack, WDSU, down in New Orleans. They are now in Irvine for camp as the Saints will get things cranked up tomorrow. He said between 9 and 9:30. Of course, that means for our time between 11 and 11:30. So I would imagine he said things last about an hour and 15 minutes. He'll say they start at 11:30. At 12:30 our time, they'll be done. We're on the air at 1, so I ought to have some feedback via Twitter, maybe an interview bite or two for the second hour of tomorrow's show as the Saints get underway and start moving forward for football here in South Louisiana in 2024. So we appreciate Sharie for jumping aboard and braving the conditions out there in 78-degree Irvine, California. We'll be giving him some thoughts and prayers for sure. All right, let's come back and close things out on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this summer for exciting live sports action. Got the biggest screens around, and ESPN Bet is live in Louisiana. Plus, Pin Play Rewards members can win up to $500 in Pin Cash every single week. So visit pinplaysports.com/cover5. Again, that's pinplaysports.com/cover5. That's the number 5 today, and register for your chance to play and win. Not a member? Get the Pin Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino is your live sports headquarters. Bring your crew for all the action. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 877-770-STOP.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
On Wednesday's OTB, we celebrate the opening of Saints training camp. Plus, we'll get you ready for the opening of the Paris Olympics. And let's do a little projected baseball lineup and rotation. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
Comedian, producer, and actor Joe Gatto is hitting the road on his Let's Get Into It tour, and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge is giving you a chance to see him live Friday, November 15th at the Raising Cane's River Center. Register to win tickets today at 1045ESPN.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Pluckers Trivia tonight, 8:30. Grab a team. Come by yourself. Always a great time. 8:30 Nicholson location. Have you out of there by 10 o'clock. Always an enjoyable time on Tuesdays. Hope you'll come on out to Pluckers. Appreciate them for bringing you our Tuesday shows each and every week. Can't wait to get on by Pluckers. Watch the Cubs tonight. Should be an enjoyable time. All right.
And the Brewers should get.
I don't want to watch
win
the Brewers.
yesterday.
I don't want to watch the Brewers, but I do want to
the
watch
Cubs
the
are
Cubs.
playing.
They are,
and they're going to beat the Brewers.
I hope very much that they beat the Brewers. I don't have extremely high confidence levels, although Tyon is throwing it pretty well.
Yeah.
So.
And what did you think of Jed Hoyer's comments about the future?
I thought he said a little too much. I didn't think he needed to answer. I'm of the opinion, and I'm in the minority, I think, on this. Most people want the coaches and management of their teams to give them answers about things. I don't live in that world. Make decisions, make trades, make draft picks, decide who's going to play and who's not, win games. I judge by what happens on the field. So I'm less concerned about what Jed says and more concerned about what the Cubs actually do. I'm one of these people that doesn't need Jay Johnson to give me the starting pitcher until 90 minutes before the game. Like, some people think they want to know 2 days out who the starting pitcher is, and they think they're a fan. They're entitled to that information, and I'm not telling you you're wrong. Like, that's just the way you feel. I don't feel that way. If he thinks that there's an advantage to them not knowing, I don't need to know. I also don't need to hear my executive give me their entire plan for the trade deadline. So we'll see what they decide to do. It's approaching rapidly. The Cubs are in a weird spot because they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but theoretically they could make the playoffs, so what are you going to do? Plus, they don't have a lot of guys to trade, so I'm indifferent on what he says. Just what do you do? I'm more concerned with that. All right, take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. It's Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Oregon brought a huge inflatable duck and put it in the river downtown to announce their arrival. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it. I'm in on 25-foot inflatable ducks.
That was good.
That's a good. I think it was very noticeable. It took the internet by storm. It accomplished exactly what they were looking for. No one was harmed in the making of this picture. So I think it was great. I think Oregon announcing its presence in that way was cool, and I'm in for things like that in July.
All right, next one here. Fresh off a trip to Paris Fashion Week, Joe Burrow cut off the long hair and went bleach blonde and buzzed. The Slim Shady look. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think what it's going to do here, it's going to, this is just coming from my wife, who just absolutely loves Joe B. Finds Joe B very attractive. She thinks he looks terrible in this haircut. That's perfect.
Whoa.
I need less attention from the ladies, more attention on football. So if we can drive the women away with bad haircuts and bad hair coloring and focus more on completing out routes, rollouts, naked bootlegs, all types of things, this is good. So we're going to go with less ladies, more touchdowns, more victories, get home field advantage, make Mahomes come to you, win that, go to the Super Bowl, win it. That's what we're trying to do. This is the first step. Make yourself more unattractive so that you can win more games.
And we've got some disturbing and quite frankly sad news that came out of Chicago today. The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile crashed.
Oh, God, I thought you were being serious.
It crashed in the Windy City.
Well,
this will be a black eye on the city of Chicago. Take it or leave it.
That's tough. I think that's probably the second most recognizable hot dog situation in all of Chicago. I would go with the Wiener Circle as the most. Those that have not been, the chocolate shake is provocative.
Maybe Vienna beef.
Look, that's a tough day for Chicago. It's the best summer city in America. I'm sure people are riding high there. The highs are not supposed to be very high this week. I've checked that as the Cubs are at home this week, so it's probably a great day, but this certainly mars that. If you've got got a Oscar Mayer mobile crashing. Hopefully it stayed out of the river. No one was, harmed too badly, and we can move past this.
Yeah, hopefully so. Moving on, last one here. The Patriots will let Jacoby Brissett start the season at quarterback while first-round pick Drake May waits in the wings. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think that's good. I think there's a lot of folks who want to rush players to the field immediately, and you can only learn on the fly. I would suggest that Bryce Young maybe didn't learn a ton last year and just got his teeth kicked in for 17 weeks. Maybe it's better to kind of take it easy, and I don't know that Drake May is a finished product. Jacoby Brissett is a perfectly capable quarterback. It's not like you're giving it to some guy who, literally can't play. I mean, the Patriots aren't playing for much this year anyway. They're not going to be good. They were atrocious last year. He's fine. He'll be okay. If Drake May needs to come in there in week 6 or 7, have at it. If he doesn't need to play at all this season, I think that's fine as well. We saw some guys that are really good in the league right now that didn't play their rookie year, and they're just fine. Aaron Rodgers did okay. Patrick Mahomes did okay. It can be done. Now, you can send somebody out there and let them play as a rookie, and they can take their lumps. Peyton Manning seemed to do that okay. But I'm not one of these guys that just has to get your first-round pick quarterback on the field as quickly as possible. If you think there's something to be gained from him sitting and waiting and kind of learning a few things, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. So get him a bunch of reps in the preseason and then let him watch for a little bit. I think that's just fine. I don't know that the Patriots are headed anywhere with any sort of quickness. So that's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Tuesday. We opened the show today giving my thoughts on the Big Ten. USC's coming in, Oregon's coming in. What do I think about those two programs as they enter the league? Are there parallels between those two and Oregon and Texas, Oklahoma and Texas entering the SEC? Just kind of a Big Ten, big picture conversation to start the show. My top 5 Saints storylines entering camp. Incidentally, they were all on the offensive side of the football. If you want to hear about that, you can go to Hunt on Saints on YouTube. All of our Saints content is going to be stored there every single day, so go ahead and subscribe up to the channel. You can get those segments right to your homepage if you subscribe to the channel Hunt on Saints. Glenn West was with us at 1:30. We talked some LSU defensive back recruiting as well as LSU defensive back play entering this season. Kind of what does Glenn think about that unit? You can find that at Hunt on LSU on YouTube. Jamar Chase looking for a new contract, and his owner says they're going to bend over backwards to give him one. I think that's good news for Jamar Chase and his camp. In the second hour, can LSU land Jonah Williams, and is he good enough to play baseball at LSU? I checked with some sources in LSU's baseball program. They said, yeah, he's plenty good enough to play, so we'll see if LSU can reel him in to play football, and maybe he can help the baseball team here and there. The NFL is discussing an 18-game schedule. I gave my comments on that. And Sharie Aack joined us from sunny, cool, humidity-free Irvine, California, where the Saints are on the practice field tomorrow. He will we'll talk Saints tomorrow as they wrap up. We'll hear probably from Dennis Allen and some of the players as well as they get things started. It is officially football time in Saints world, which is a very, very good thing. If you missed any of our show today, you can catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab. All of our shows are archived there in their entirety each and every day. You can find Off the Bench. You can find Live at Lunch, Hunt Palmer Show, and of course After Further Review there on the website or wherever you find your podcast. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, review. We are here. We are done with the dearth of the summer months. We've got football to talk about, and we're certainly doing it each and every day. LSU starts up their fall camp a week from Thursday. So you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You've got 6 shows before we're knee deep in practice reports and all that. So it's here. We've kind of made it through the dog days of summer. We're back tomorrow. It's a What If Wednesday and talking Saints. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further Review. Have a great Tuesday. Hope to see you at Pluckers. If not, tomorrow on the Hunt Palmer Show.